For their contribution to helping unlock the mysteries of the universe, 3 physicists are awarded this year's Nobel Prize. How earth-shattering are their discoveries? Some answers right after this break, together with our best wishes for this year's Nobel Prize winners. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Next, we take a look at scientists whom the Sweden-based Nobel Committee has recognized for their groundbreaking work in medicine, physics, and chemistry. The discoveries of this year's winners have broadened our understanding of human biology and changed our concepts of the cosmos and the inner working of the universe. In the next few days, the Nobel Prize in Literature, Peace, and Economic Sciences will be announced. Before we get down to a discussion about them, let's take a look at the newly crowned Nobel laureates.
Decided to award the 2019 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to William Kaelin, Sir Peter Ratcliffe, and Greg Semenza for their discoveries of how cells can and adapt to oxygen availability.
To award the 2019 Nobel Prize in Physics with one half to James Peebles for theoretical discoveries in physical cosmology, and the other half jointly to Michel Mayor
of the Nobel Prizes
and Didier Queloz for the discovery of an exoplanet orbiting a solar-type star. Award the 2019 Nobel Prize in Chemistry jointly to John B. Goodenough, M. Stanley Whittingham, and Akira Yoshino for the development of lithium-ion batteries.
For more on the Nobel Prize, we are joined in Zhuhai, Zhang Fan, an associate professor of astronomy at Beijing Normal University, and in Stockholm, Sweden, we have Marcus Jansson, who is an associate professor at Stockholm University. Welcome to both of you. This is a wonderful and exciting week with all kinds of Nobel Prize likely to be unveiled to the rest of the world. Mr. Jansson, I mean, based in Stockholm yourself, I'm sure this is one of the most exciting time of the year.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's very exciting, and especially this year, I think, because the prize was awarded to research that's very close to my own field. So I was very happy this year.
So how is it to your field? How close is it to your field?
So basically, what 2 of this year's laureates, Michel Mayor and Didier Queloz, what their discovery led to was basically the whole research field that I'm now working in. So this research field basically didn't exist before this discovery, and now it's one of the biggest research fields in astronomy. So it was really a fundamental discovery.
Describe this field, please. You sound like really a scientist. I have to follow up with many questions in order to get some real essence. Go ahead, sir, Mr.
Absolutely.
Jansson.
So yes. So my research field is about extrasolar planets. So that's planets that revolve around other stars than the sun. You know, before this discovery in the early 90s, we still didn't know if any other stars had planets around them, because none had been discovered yet. But in the sort of early to mid-90s, this discovery of a planet around the star 51 Peg was discovered. And since then, the field has really accelerated, and today we know about more than 4,000 exoplanets around different stars in our galaxy.
your talk, I'm sure, reminds Mr. Zhang, who is coming from Beijing, a lot of the areas in which he has been researching on and has been very excited. What about your insights so far, Mr. Zhang, of this year's Nobel Prize laureates?
Before the middle of the last century, it really isn't quite considered a science. It's considered more in the realm of philosophy. And scientists sometimes use that in a slightly derogative terms way, meaning that the claims are not verifiable. But since that time, and particularly due to the contribution of this year's laureate, James Peebles, observational confirmation of a lot of the theoretical predictions has been made possible. So he basically researched into what people should look at and how to interpret the results. And after that, basically, cosmology became another field in astronomy that's really, really strong, like the exoplanet search. Yeah.
It seems that Nobel laureates have been able to open many unknown doors and pointing to the uncharted paths to many of us in the rest of the world. But now, I have to remind both of you gentlemen, the world is at a critical juncture. We see a lot of debate about multilateralism, unilateralism, about politics, about international platforms or not, whether there's a win-win or there's only we win first no matter what the others are doing. So what does this kind of debate mean for scientists like you? And how will that, do you think, impact on the discussions related to the achievements of the Nobel laureates? Mr. Janssen, you want to go first?
I would perhaps look at it from maybe the opposite perspective, which is that I think the research that we're doing is really sort of unifying, because we're looking at the universe and we realize that we're quite, the Earth is kind of small, and it's a very small part of the universe. So it's kind of, I think it motivates us as humans to stick together rather than sort of argue about, small matters on Earth.
To you, scientists like you, Mr. Janssen, when the politicians are talking about things, when the trade wars are going on, to you, what are those?
I think, anytime you have international relations, international connections, there will be, frictions, and that will lead to debates and so on. But I think, to me, I see more the positive sides. I see the collaborations that come out of it, the possibilities to find new collaborations, exchange new ideas and so on. Yeah.
Right. Mr. Zhang, to you, I mean, you're originally from China. There has been a long debate in China for decades as to why the Chinese has not won a Nobel Prize. Of course, Ms. Tu Youyou's winning the Nobel Prize have certainly provided a lot of people with the satisfying answer. So now people are not asking just questions related to national borders, but rather asking questions from China about what does this year's Nobel laureates researchers mean to all of us. How do you see this change in people's attitude toward an international prize as important as the Nobel Prize?
Well, this year's awards, as I said earlier, they share some similarities in that they open up new research fields. And once a new research field opens up, that means a substantial body of researchers and funding would go into a particular area, and that has to come from many different governments. So by opening up a new area, that opens up the opportunity for China, including China, as well as everybody else, to do something meaningful in the future. And for example, the exoplanet search, China's new radio telescope, who participate in that and look for planets with magnetic fields, that sort of things. And this year's awards are to people that, to some people, they're surprising in the sense that, in particular, in the cosmology category, the person who won it really contributed over many, many, many years, not like single explosive discovery, but rather contributing very gradually, very solidly in almost everything in that field. So this should teach people that, you know, Nobel Prize is not the goal here, and especially for Chinese people, you should concentrate on science. If you do solid work, you will be rewarded or whatever you build up.
Well, Mr. Jansen, at the time of geopolitical change, even though you do not enjoy watching all the latest development, but that's just a matter of fact for our world, do you think the kinds of cooperation, particularly about science, whether it's specific projects or on macro issues, likely to continue as it used to be? What would that mean? How would scientists like you prepare for the best and the worst?
Yes, I mean, I think collaborations will continue. I think they will have to continue in the sense that, you know, to make deeper and deeper discoveries about the universe, we basically need more and more complicated machinery, more and more complicated facilities, and so on. And that means that you have to have more and more countries coming together and collaborate. So I think it will happen by necessity. I mean, everyone realizes that, you know, in order to make these big discoveries, a lot of parties have to collaborate, and then, you know, if it has to happen, then it tends to happen, I think.
Mr. Zhang, your take?
Nowadays, because the size of the instruments, the funding sizes, science relies very heavily on public funding, which means scientists' collaboration sometimes get disrupted by political winds, and that is very, in my opinion, very destructive and not very helpful at all. Because, in my opinion, politics fundamentally boils down to who gets how much what's existing, you know, how big the cake. It's all about dividing up the cake. And science and technology is about making the cake bigger, so everybody gets a bigger share. So I just think you can fight whichever way you like, but don't get in the middle of the important things, you know, making things better for everybody.
Interesting. I think this is the inner call from the scientists like you guys, even the younger generation, that the politicians should really listen to this. What is the most important for all of us? Before we go, one important question, Mr. Jansen. Of course, there are so many areas of development in all kinds of sciences. And Nobel Prize every year could only have the capacity of honoring one branch or even smaller than one branch of all the areas. So what does that mean to the other scientists who are watching these events, you yourself included, about the future?
Well, you know, I think it's you know, regardless of whether you win a Nobel Prize or not, I think they act as an inspiration. You know, I think you know, not everyone who's an athlete will win an Olympic gold, say, but I think the gold medalist can still inspire a lot of people, you know, to join the field and do their best. And I think, you know, even if you end up with a silver medal, I think you can sort of be happy about what you've accomplished. So I think, yeah, I think it's true, as you say, that you know, it can only you know, highlight limited fields and so on. But I think that also gives it a sort of exclusivity, which means that, you know, it gets a lot of attention and so on. And I think that's a good thing.
And Mr. Zhang, of course, it's not just the Nobel Prize that the Chinese are very interested in, but also in China there is just an extreme rise of enthusiasm towards science and technological development over the past decade. And now in China, you also have a lot of science awards besides the Nobel Prize, which is internationally. So how do you see this increasing sense about science and about technological cooperation from China with the rest of the world? What does that mean for Chinese response to this year's Nobel Prize and the futures to come?
Well, it's quite encouraging to see all these young people getting really interested. Not just young people. It's the awards. There are entrepreneurs, business people behind those awards. So they're now recognizing the need for original innovation, for blue sky research, and all of that fundamental research. And this will only push China towards the right direction in the future, where it contributes more and more towards science.
I remember having many conversations with various kinds of Nobel laureates, and what they have in mind, mainly at the very beginning of the conversation, is always the process of research is much more rewarding than the prize itself. On that note, I want to thank both of you for joining us. Thank you so much. From Stockholm, Marcus Janssen, and from Beijing originally, Zhang Fan. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you.
That is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching, and tune in again next time for more insights across China and